Welcome to Whispers of the Web, where the hidden gems of the web come to life. Join us as we unravel the most fascinating tales, secrets, and discussions from across the web. Every whisper has a story. If you enjoy our journey through the whispers of the web, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the intrigue. I made my daughter get an abortion because she's slow. My daughter is 16, and she is functioning way below her age and grade level. She is functioning at an 11 or 12-year-old level. She barely made it to the 10th grade. My husband travels a lot and I work full-time with my youngest kid being 8 years old. I've never had any help besides financially in raising my kids. I'm almost 50 years and I would be raising this baby. Baby father is a pimple-faced teen with ADHD and other disorders. I hope God forgives me, but I can't. I just can't. Wow, guys. This is so sad. I hope this mother can get her daughter on birth control of some sort to prevent another pregnancy, and get some therapy for her and her daughter so they can begin the healing process. This is clearly a traumatic situation for both of them. What would you have done in this situation? I don't think I would force a baby on my daughter, but I also wouldn't force an abortion. I absolutely would not want to raise her child though, so I have no idea how I would handle this. I'm torn here. I'm quietly leaving him after 15 years due to his friend. My spouse, 35 male, and I have been together for 15 years. For background, he has cheated in the past. When I was younger, I stayed because I was stupid and in love. As I got older, I stayed because of our kids and financial reasons. Around a year ago, I had just given birth and found out that he had been secretly talking to an old hookup of his. He said that he reached out to talk to her about personal emotional issues that he couldn't talk about with me. They had been talking since I was about 6 months pregnant. I know him well enough to know that it was most likely longer, and he swears it was just talking. I doubt that. I was only out of the hospital for a few days when I found out. I decided to work on it. He promised that he would delete her, block her, and never speak to her again. Fast forward to now, and yesterday he admitted that she had texted him. Weird, considering she was supposed to be blocked. They had a conversation catching up and then he stopped responding to her. In the past I would get emotional, be hurting, crying and lashing out verbally. This time I just went numb. I looked at him and realized that I no longer love him and probably haven't for a while. I know by his actions that he never loved me. It seems like it was completely innocent in this conversation, but she was supposed to be blocked. And he promised to never speak to her again. He was so casual in telling me, almost like he hadn't done anything wrong. But he was wrong for talking to her and unblocking her. He was wrong for not making me feel safe and loved. I've been checking out for a while, but this was my moment that I knew he would never change. I would deal with this the rest of my life, and I would be teaching my kids that this behavior is okay. My daughters would learn to accept it, and my son would imitate the behavior. I refuse to accept that future. I'll make my own. Now I'm leaving him quietly. I'm saving all the money I can and getting myself set financially. I want to have a safety net to fall on when I'm on my own and to make sure I'll be able to take care of my kids. It hurts to know I wasted so much time loving someone who doesn't love me, but I've accepted it. I know most people think I'm stupid for staying with him. I think I'm stupid too. He was the only one who acted like he loved me. I had no one else, no family or friends. I think he used that to his advantage to keep me around. I have no one to talk to about this and it's scary. So I had to tell someone, and why not an anonymous post? Wish me luck. Per OP, this new chapter in her life is going to be tough, but it sounds like she has the determination needed to make a better life for herself and her kids. She should have left him a long time ago, and definitely should never have had kids with him. But I personally have stayed with a cheater to try and fix my relationship, but it did not work out. Her husband is a tool too. He believes she'll never leave and that's why he'll never change. Him being so ready to have a relationship with a past fling, even if it is just emotionally cheating, it's still cheating. I think it would eventually lead to another cheating event if he hasn't already. I definitely don't believe him in the slightest. He probably believes that if he's honest about talking to his past fling, then his wife will see a changed, honest man and won't suspect anything nefarious. I agree that she needs to leave him once a cheater. Always a cheater, and I wish her and her little ones all the best in healing and finding happiness. What do you guys think? I have been faking headaches for the past 10 years. When I was 6, I began getting headaches, and naturally I enjoyed getting to stay home and sit in bed all day. But pretty soon the headaches went away. So I faked them. It's pretty easy to fake one. Just act a little annoyed and disconnected and maybe pretend to throw up. This became a habit, and now a lot of my medical history is a lie. My family thinks I have chronic migraines. Of course, even though I have headaches every few months, Excedrin works just fine. Now I don't want to fake my headaches so much for work. I shouldn't be doing that, but it's incessant. Maybe I'm just an impulsive liar. Should I come out to my family about the headaches or try to ease off them? That's quite the long con. I would be afraid of telling anyone I know. You'll be labeled as a liar for the rest of your life. But maybe that'll be the wake-up call needed for OP. Personally, if I were OP, I would not tell my family, but I might tell my doctors. I'm not sure how old they are. But if they are an adult, then doctor-patient confidentiality would prevent their family from knowing their medical history, but it would get them better medical care. I think their doctors might then label their chart and say that they're a liar. What do you guys think? Do you think they should tell anyone at all or just slowly pretend to get better from the headaches? Do you think OP will stop their lying, or do you think they will go right back to faking medical conditions to get out of things they don't want to do? My son said something to my babysitter, and it emotionally destroyed me. I, 26 female, am raising 2 kids all on my own. My kids are fed, clothed, clean, go to daycare, and have everything they need. But my babysitter told me something that has really dragged me down. I work full-time, clean, cook, grocery shop, take care of the kids, etc., all on my own. I have no time for myself, and what little time I do I try to spend it with the kids. However, lately I've been very worn down. By the time I get my kids from their after daycare babysitter at 5 p.m., I'm already mentally drained. Then as soon as I step foot into my apartment, I have to start getting the kids ready for dinner, then bed if I want them to wake up refreshed for the day. I wake up to them fighting over everything. Toys, blankets, my phone, everything. I have to change 2 diapers, brush their teeth, groom them, feed them breakfast, and then get them on the bus by 7:45 a.m. From there I have 45 minutes to pick up the house, get dressed, eat something, enjoy a cup of coffee, then go straight to work. I spend all day at work being yelled at by ungrateful people over $5 fees when they have over $500,000 in their accounts. Go home and do the same thing all over again. My son, for male, has been asking for me to read to him a lot, but by the time I sit down I'm so tired from my day I can't keep my eyes open. I can tell this disappoints him, and it kills me every time I tell him no, but I'm only one person and can only do so much. My kids constantly hang on me, grabbing at my arms, legs, hair, feet, anything they can do to touch me. They're always asking me for things they know how to do on their own, like getting a toy 2 inches from their hand. My daughter, 2 female, is always crying. You can look at her, and she cries. It's like nails on a chalkboard. I love my children and I would do anything for them, but I'm tired. I have no help. My mom is sick and doesn't help much even when she's feeling well. My dad is an alcoholic and can't be trusted with them alone. My son's father lives in Texas and only recently started talking to me again. However, it's almost never about his son. My daughter's father, anytime I try to reach out to him, it's all about his problems and how bad things have gotten for him. I have my daughter's side of the family, but I don't want to ask too much of them. They all have their own lives and can get stressed out if I ask too much of them. The other day my babysitter told me that my son wishes I would read more to him. It tore my heart out to know how I'm making him feel that way. And my daughter, although she can't express it yet, how I know the disappointment she feels when I ask her to stop touching me and to give me some space. I feel like a failure to my kids. Every day I wake knowing what the day brings and knowing that by the end of it all I'll be crying myself to sleep, knowing I didn't do enough. Knowing I didn't have the time once again to read to my babies. Knowing I was too physically uncomfortable being touched at the moment my kids wanted to cuddle. Knowing that every time my daughter cries I want to cry myself because of how overwhelmed I feel. I don't know what to do. There's just not enough time in the day for everything, and I know my kids are the ones suffering for it. Update. Well, not really an update, but a huge thank you to everyone. Although I'm not responding, but I promise I'm reading all of your comments. Update 2. I have read over your suggestions and am going to manage my time a lot better. I fell into a deep rut and shut down, and I think I needed all the kind words I had here today to pull me out of it. I'm currently talking to my doctor about new medication and working on creating a better schedule for myself and my children. I have also taken the most recommended option and going to start recording myself reading some stories on my kids' tablets so I can sit down and listen with them. I also am going to take better care of myself and make time for myself as well. Again, thank you so much for all of your kind comments and support. You have no idea how much it's made me feel better about myself and helped me be motivated to reflect on myself and parenting to be better for my family. You guys are awesome. What a sweet ending to this post. I'm thankful to hear that the community really stepped up and helped support this struggling parent when she really needed it. I'm reading through a lot of the comments, and most of them are incredibly supportive and kind. I hope she can continue to find support when she needs it, and will use this resource in the future if she needs more kind-hearted advice. What advice would you have given? I threw away a customer's phone for leaving a huge mess. Throwback to being 19 at my first job working fast food. It was the busiest store in the district with the most sales, and I was in charge of the dinner and taking the orders for all the customers. Wasn't allowed to clean while there were orders to take, but I had to be sure that the dinner and bathrooms were clean and that the trash was taken out by the end of the day. So, one day this group of teens like my age or maybe a bit younger came in, kinda sat in the back out of view and proceeded to leave all of their trash on the table despite the trash can being only a few feet away, in addition to getting sauces and chili all over the table. Unfortunately for them, one of them left their phone on the table. So I did what any good employee would do. I cleaned the table, throwing everything on it away. Later the teen that couldn't find his phone came back and asked if I'd seen a phone. I straight-faced told him no, and we stared at each other for a moment. I get the feeling that the gears were turned and maybe he'd remembered the mess they left, and kinda put two and two together, but regardless, after that little stare down he just walked out, and I never saw him again. I don't know, but it felt like justice to me in the moment. I know those of you in customer service might be getting a little schadenfreude from this story, but I'm a little torn. On one hand, I was a server in a restaurant when I was a teenager, and there were plenty of tables that I would label as bad. However, I would never destroy their property for making me put in work. I go to work, not get revenge on customers that I think have treated the place I work for poorly. Maybe OP was just young and dumb. What do you guys think? Do you think OP went too far, or would you do something similar? Do any of you have similar customer service stories? I exaggerated my daughter's symptoms so the doctors would do tests. I want to start by saying I do not have Munchausen syndrome. I love my kids and I don't want them to be sick. Anyways, my daughter started having episodes of breath holding, abnormal eye movements, and lethargic type symptoms after these episodes. The first time it happened, I took her in and truthfully told them what happened. I was told, "It's probably breath holding spells. It's pretty scary for new moms." And we were sent home. The diagnosis didn't sit right with me. Over the course of a month, the episodes were more frequent, happening every day, multiple times a day. She had an episode where it lasted 2 minutes. So I took her to the ER, exaggerated the symptoms, and they did additional tests. 24-hour EEG and MRI. The tests confirmed that she in fact has epilepsy, not breath-holding spells. I don't know about you guys, but I have had many issues with doctors not listening or dismissing symptoms as well. Once I was having terrible stomach pains for a long time. I lost a bunch of weight even, and I went to 3 doctors over the course of 2 years. The first 2 doctors were dismissive, and both said I must have an overproduction of stomach acid, and that was what was causing all of my issues. No tests were run, nothing. Third doctor finally got me in to get scoped, and it turns out I had 6 stomach ulcers. That's why I hurt so much. Some doctors just don't want to do the tests or get a definitive diagnosis, so I would definitely lie to a doctor to get the right tests. What would you guys do? I controlled my neighbor's TV for 6 months from my phone and made him sell the TV. Now I regret it. Last year I had an a-hole neighbor who always would be playing loud music, be rude to everyone, and not pick up his dog's crap when they would go for walks right outside the building. The dog had a barking problem too, but I'm not hating on the dog. One evening I had problems with the internet, and for giggles I tried to connect to my neighbor's Wi-Fi with a password 0123456789. Guess what? It connected. The same evening at 11 p.m. I started hearing crappy drum and bass from my neighbor's apartment as usual, and all of a sudden I see a pop-up appear on my phone. I have a Samsung phone, and when you open the YouTube app on any Samsung Smart TV, a pop-up appears on your phone with the TV casted YouTube app. As long as both devices are on the same Wi-Fi network, you have full control of TV YouTube on your phone. Pause, play, volume, skip video if it's a playlist, choose a different recommended video, etc. At first I did not realize what the pop-up was and just thought, WTF is this? I thought my phone was glitching. There were options, pause, forward, volume, etc. I pressed pause and all of a sudden there was silence in my neighbor's apartment. After a few seconds the music started again, and I saw that the play button turned to a pause button again on my phone. I pressed pause again, music disappeared, and behind the wall I hear, "What the freak?" I cannot describe the feelings I had in that moment. My facial expression must have looked like that Chris Pratt meme from Parks and Rec. Oh snap. The music started playing again, and again. I pressed pause. Now I'm hearing grunts and profanities from my neighbor. I could feel his confusion and anger through the walls. I had never felt so much power in my life. God, universe, or whatever you want to call it, had blessed me with a gift. I kept screwing with him that evening. Pause, skip video, turn the volume up and down. He tried turning the TV on and off, logging in and out of his YouTube account, and nothing seemed to work. He was so pissed off. It was the first time I was happy that the walls in our building are so thin. This went on for days. Turned out he mostly used YouTube on his TV to watch videos, podcasts, even to play music. He was going completely insane. He did switch to Spotify, I'm guessing, for music, but still. Every time he wanted to watch a podcast or some videos, I was there, ready and waiting for him to feel my wrath. Throughout the next few months I heard him call customer support multiple times, making him reset the TV to factory settings, logging in and out of the YouTube app countless times. Sometimes I would stop messing with it for a couple of days to give him false hope. Then all of a sudden, when I hear him watching some comedy podcast that he is enjoying, I would start playing another video for him. He would literally scream. Long story short, after 6 months of this, as I'm walking down the hallway one day, I saw a random couple carrying the TV out of his apartment, and him holding cash in his hand. I drove him to selling the TV and buying a new one. In that moment I felt bad and started to regret my actions. Felt kind of childish about the fact that I had been doing this for 6 months. Oh, this one made me giggle. I know they feel ashamed for causing his neighbor to sell his TV, but the neighbor was labeled as an a-hole. Do you guys think a bad neighbor deserves this kind of revenge? I was a janitor and lived rent-free in the janitor's closet. I worked as a janitor in a school. There was a dedicated janitor's closet which was quite spacious. After I had finished vacuuming all the classes in the afternoon, I had to turn the security system on and leave within a minute. There was a caveat though, the front gate and the dedicated janitor closet were exempted from the motion cameras. I couldn't justify, or afford, spending half of my paycheck a week for what should be a human right, shelter, so I did what I had to do and simply lived in that closet. I saved over $20,000 in rent. I installed a mini fridge and an air fryer and had quite the time. The contract got changed so I lost that gig. I feel a bit bad for freeloading off the school, but the government can provide insulated sheds to all of its citizens for a few billion but would rather spend much more on war and overinflated salaries for its oligarchs. I wouldn't do it again. Best commute ever though. I mean, can you really blame him though? I can't afford my own house. I'm just trying to get by myself, and I've thought a lot about ways to lower my monthly expenses. I would be lying if I said I haven't thought about buying a used RV and living in the forest on free land. Maybe then I could afford food. I lured a homeless woman to my house, hoping to screw her. I, male 43, did this almost 10 years ago, and it's something I've never told anyone before. It was hugely reckless, manipulative, and occurred during a time of rampant self-destruction and reckless behavior for me following a nasty divorce. I was living alone, and very lonely. Not finding any luck in regular dating or even one-night stands, I started using Craigslist and Backpages to find hookups. I connected with a woman, Michelle, who was in a nearby city and claimed to be homeless and looking for help. I'd seen tons of scams like this, and fallen for a few, where a personal's ad was really just a step one of a larger scheme to get some fast cash. I decided to play along a little and we chatted for a day or so. We were connecting, and I began to think she was telling the truth. Or at the very least a very consistent storyteller. We exchanged pics, and she was reasonably okay looking, older than me by about 7 years. But not some bag lady type person. Honestly, not someone I would have otherwise pursued. But for the fact that I thought if I gave her a place to sleep, she'd be grateful and let me screw her. So, we made arrangements for me to come meet her downtown one evening, and we had coffee in a diner. She was actually sort of kind of cute in person. She was really short, but very loud, intelligent. She was crafty, and showed me pictures of a bunch of stuff she'd made by hand like knitting and dollhouse furniture. She loved sending physical letters and cards in the mail. She loved handwriting and calligraphy, and said letters felt more personal than texting or emails. But she was also definitely a bit weird. I remember she had some really strong opinions about mundane food choices, and went off on some bizarre conspiracy theory tangents with next to no prompting. I chalked it up to her living on the streets, and thought I could probably manage a little weird if it meant I could get what I wanted. I decided to roll the dice because above all other things, I was incredibly horny and desperate. I invited her back to my apartment, saying she could stay with me a few days if she wanted. She didn't hesitate even a second. She only had 2 small bags with her, so we grabbed those and took off back to my apartment. To be absolutely clear again, I was not doing this to be a good guy, or because I cared about her. At no point did I ever genuinely want to help this woman, or improve her life. This was 100% in the hopes of getting her comfortable enough at my place that we'd hook up. Every dollar I spent in gas or coffee was mentally calculated as a cost of getting to that point. Every kindness and word I said that first night was part of a larger design. At the time I think I was even trying to fool myself into thinking I was being a nice guy. But now years later I can see how manipulative it all was. I never intended to physically force her to do anything she didn't want to do, but I was most definitely trying to build a path towards us screwing, and I was definitely abusing a power dynamic by trying to create a situation where she was 1. At my place with no convenient means to leave on her own and 2. Felt obligated to repay my generosity. So we get back to my apartment, and I let her shower, get cleaned up, have a late night snack. We watch some TV and cuddle up on the couch, and she's just incredibly grateful and also very clingy. She would sit really close, and at one point asked if we could hold hands. Later she broke down a little and cried because she said she'd not felt safe in probably 8 months or so. She had been either staying on the streets, in shelters, cars, or with someone who was dangerous because she had no other options. She thanked me repeatedly for being kind and giving her a chance. Each time, I told her it was no problem, I was happy to do it, I was so glad I could help, etc. But none of that was true. I was still just waiting for the right time to see if I could pivot into something physical. She asked how long she could stay. We'd already discussed this before I agreed to let her come over, and I told her just 3 days. I had partial custody of my kids at this time, and could not let her be there while the kids were with me. She seemed to swing wildly back and forth between sadness and gratitude, and not knowing what to do next. I couldn't be sure I would succeed if I made a move, so I left it alone. As the night wore on, I told her I needed to get to bed, because I had to work tomorrow, and she said okay, but just sort of sat and waited for me to do or say something else. I walked her back to my kids' room and told her she could sleep in here. There was a bunk bed and lots of clean linens and stuff in there, and I would be right down the hall if she needed anything in the night. I could tell she was really surprised. I started to realize that I was not being smooth or clever, and that she 100% expected and anticipated me wanting her to come to my bed. And I know now I am not the first or last guy to abuse her in this way, and I think vulnerable people just sort of get used to being taken advantage of. I wanted it to be her choice, and didn't want to tell her or even suggest to her to come to my room. In my screwed up head I thought that still made me somewhat honorable, so I left her there and she slept in my kids' bedroom room all night, and I slept in mine. I waited up about 45 minutes hoping she'd come down the hall. At one point I heard her get up and use the hall toilet, and I got excited and almost immediately rock hard, thinking, this is it. Like it was some kind of porno intro. But then she went back to the other room. We woke up the next morning, and she was so happy. She said it was the best night's sleep she'd had in a very long time. We had a quick breakfast and coffee that morning before I left for work, and she asked if I could give her some cash for the day. Alarm bells were ringing in my head, but my dick was still in charge. She claimed she wanted to walk to the nearest store and get some cleaning supplies and clean my apartment as a thank you for letting her stay. I told her she didn't need to do that, or repay me at all, but she really wanted to. So I gave her $50 and left her there in my apartment for the day. In hindsight, it was an insanely stupid thing to do. I could have been completely cleaned out and robbed by the time I came home. She could have invited other people over, gotten high, or trashed the place. We texted a little during the day, but I never knew for sure what I was going to come back to, so I was getting increasingly anxious. And up to the point that I actually walked in, I was still half expecting her to be gone, along with my TV and anything else of value. But no, she was there, and had done exactly what she'd said. She'd walked to the freaking Walmart and gotten a bunch of stuff, cleaners and a new mop, and had cleaned my whole kitchen and both bathrooms, vacuumed, and everything. When I got home, she ran up to me and hugged me, and it was like we'd been living together for a long time. She showed me everything she cleaned, and playfully reprimanded me for not having better supplies. She asked about my day, and how I was doing, and we just had a great rhythm and a lovely evening. I remember she asked to cook and I said sure, but because I was a dumbass single guy at the time, I didn't have much. She made some kind of chicken something dish from what she could find, and it was honestly pretty terrible. But I smiled, and thanked her, and told her it was great because it was a sweet gesture, and also because everything seemed to be coming together. We cuddled again that night watching a movie, and this time she started to get pretty bold. She would hug me and run her hands under my shirt, and put her fingers through my hair, and laid her head on my shoulder, and touched my legs a lot. I just let her do whatever she wanted. I gave very little back, even though I was so turned on. I wanted to do more, but as soon as my plan started to obviously work, I began to feel incredibly guilty and like a complete piece of crap for everything I'd done up to that point. The night went on, and it was getting late. I told her again I needed to get to bed because of work in the morning. As we walked down the hall, I started to tell her goodnight at the other room, and she just asked, "Can I sleep in your bed instead?" And I said, "I don't want you to feel like you have to do that." Absolute a lie. I orchestrated this moment to make her feel that way and definitely wanted her in there. She said, "No, I want to. This bed is nice, but I want to be next to you if that's okay." So we both went to my room. Now I don't know if she decided to come in there during the day besides to clean the adjoining bathroom, or if she would have respected my privacy. But she at least acted surprised because my bed's way nicer than the kids' bunk beds obviously. She stripped down immediately, and crawled into bed naked. She kind of hopped and bounced a little, laughing like a kid, and she looked so happy to be there. I stripped down too and really enjoyed just getting to see her whole body at last. As soon as the lights were down, she got really sexually aggressive right away. She crawled on top of me, and we were making out and grinding, and it felt incredible. I do remember though she was a terrible kisser. She did this thing where she would kind of open and close her mouth while she kissed, like she was chomping. But this was what I'd been planning for, and so we went for it. We rolled around for a couple hours, touched and kissed each other everywhere, and screwed 2 times that night, and I didn't even use protection because I was so lost in it. Incredibly stupid and reckless. The next day, it was like something had completely lifted for me. Call it post-nut clarity, I guess. But I'd gotten what I wanted out of this exchange, so I was ready to move on. And I started to think more and more about how dangerous and reckless I'd been in this whole scenario. That next morning she was sort of idly talking about the weekend coming up. I reminded her that I told her she could only be here for 3 days. I could tell she was hoping that the previous night might have changed things, but I held firm. I began to immediately pull away emotionally, because I didn't want to be manipulated into changing my mind. I got a bit colder to her, and left for work again that morning. The whole way there I was cursing my stupidity at being so cold. Not because I'd obviously hurt her feelings, but because now she might want to punish me. And I just left her alone again at my place. I got back home that evening and everything was fine. She had gone back to the store and gotten some more food, and had a nicer dinner waiting for me. I tried to be so nice, but was in such a crappy mood on the inside. I think because she was doing everything she could think of to show me how nice it was for her to be there, to be grateful. And all I could do was to see it through the same lens I'd used on her, that she was now manipulating me, and trying to get me to fall for her so that I'd let her stay. I tried not to let it show, but I think she could definitely pick up on the change in the atmosphere. I said a few times that night about how I'd need to drop her off at some point the next day before my kids came over, either before work or right after I got back, making it clear the plan wasn't going to change. By the end of the evening, she'd made arrangements for a friend to come and pick her up. I told her, "You can't let them in here, you know that, right?" And I could tell it really hurt her feelings. She said she understood. When it was time for bed, the mood lifted a little, and we both got playful with each other again. We both slept in my room again that night, and despite how I'd acted, she was still all over me once the lights went off. We screwed again, and cuddled for a little while after. I remember thinking in the dark, while her head was on my chest and I was playing with her hair. I imagined what my life might be like if I decided to treat this woman like an actual person, and to not just use and discard her. But then I tried to imagine how I'd explain her to other people, or what my friends would think of her. Someday it might come out what I'd done, and someone else would see through my bull crap and realize I'd manipulated her. So I started to focus on everything she'd done that I didn't like the bad food, and the terrible kissing, the weird conspiracy stuff, and I just closed my mind to anything else. I'd done something reckless, but made it out with my kidneys intact, and shouldn't try to push my luck any further. The next morning, I was feeling terrible, but wouldn't budge on her having to leave. I never even asked her where she would actually go, or who the friend was that was picking her up. All that mattered was that she'd be gone by the time I came back from work. She asked to keep in touch, and for a way to send me a letter, so I gave her my P.O. box. She texted me during the day to tell me she got off safely, and sure enough, she was gone by the time I got home. She left the place in great condition, and even made the beds. I remember because my kids were like, "Dad, why did you do that?" Because I have never once made theirs for them. We chatted via text for a little while longer. I want to say maybe a few weeks at most. Just very superficial. "Hey, how are you? Hope things are good." Type texts. She had gone back to the city, where there were more resources for her, and had hopes for a job lead. I just gradually stopped replying much, and then at some point she never texted again. I am telling this story now, in all its detail, because I was and am a complete piece of crap. I took advantage of this vulnerable woman for my own gain. Everything I did, everything I said, every act of generosity was done so that I could screw her. I didn't actually care about her, or her situation, or what happened to her when I was done. She was just someone who I could screw. I didn't grape her by the technical definition, but I definitely coerced her, and manipulated her. I tried to justify it in my head by saying that these were her own choices. But I told her lies that I thought she'd want to hear, and I intentionally created a situation where she would have those choices to make. So now, I can say unequivocally I did something truly awful to this poor woman. It's something I will hide for the rest of my life out of shame and guilt because I know it was terrible, and it makes me question the kind of person I truly am at my core for having done it. This is quite the confession. I have my own personal opinion on this post. My own spouse has trauma from being manipulated into sleeping with someone, and she really struggles with it. I hope that poor woman is better off and living her life to the fullest. I hope this man will never do anything even remotely close to coercion again. Hopefully he can heal. I used garlic and onions in a meal when I was strictly asked not to. My stepmother-in-law won't allow my father-in-law to eat anything with garlic or onions, not even garlic powder or onion powder. She claims that it hurts his stomach. So, whenever they're in town and come over for dinner, I refrain from using garlic or onions, which is frustrating because I use those too in just about everything I cook. For a little backstory about my stepmother-in-law's cooking, she makes the blandest food. Once, we went to her Thanksgiving dinner. She cooked the turkey around noon, cut it up, and had it out around 3, but no one was allowed over until 5 p.m. By the time we arrived, the turkey was cold AF and drier than the Sahara Desert. The woman just doesn't know how to make a tasty meal. Anyhow, my father-in-law visited us once without his wife, and I made chicken breast with garlic and onion seasoning, and he loved it. Nothing happened to him after he ate it. He told me that he can eat garlic and onions if they're cooked, but for some reason, when he's around his wife, both of those ingredients are not to be used. They visited before Christmas, and we planned a dinner at my house. My stepmother-in-law made it a point to call me to remind me not to use garlic or onions. She also called my wife to remind me not to use garlic or onions. I was so annoyed that she made it a point to remind us not to use the two ingredients after years of her constantly reminding us. That night, I cooked the chicken breast with sage, rosemary, thyme, garlic, and onion powder. Both my stepmother-in-law and father-in-law loved the meal. In fact, they commented on how juicy the chicken was and how delicious it tasted. It turns out they both like garlic and onions, but for some reason, just have an issue with it. Also, either one of them got sick. I would never have the courage to do something like this to anyone, but this story still made me laugh. It would have been so different if either of them were actually allergic to one of those ingredients. Do you think he went too far, or do you think his stepmother-in-law is a little crazy? I've been faking being from the UK for 6 years and it's gone way too far. I'm using a throwaway account because I don't want my friends to find my main account. In 6th grade, my family and I moved to another state because of a new job that my mother had gotten. This was the first time in my life where I would be the new kid, so I wanted to spice it up a little. When I started school the next week and had to introduce myself to the class, I decided to lie and say that I was a transfer student from the UK. I had the British accent and everything. Everybody was interested in being my friend since I was British, and they asked me a lot about how school and life was in the UK. Instead of just giving up the joke then and there, I went home and researched a bunch about the UK and came back the next day and explained everything I had researched, and people actually believed me. My plan was to pull out of the joke after a few days, but eventually I got too far in to actually stop. I sometimes ordered British snacks from online stores and brought them to school for my friends to try. My friends also gave me American snacks, and I had to pretend that I had never tried them before. I'm in 11th grade now, and all my friends and peers from that school still actually think I'm British. I know this isn't as horrible as the other confessions on here, but I'm feeling really guilty about lying about this for so long, and need to get this off my chest. As soon as I get home, I switch back to my normal voice, but sometimes I even have trouble switching back to my regular voice because of how much I use the British accent. I don't know what to do because I even lied and told my friends that I'm going back to the UK for summer vacation, and they told me to send pics of my family down there when I go. I honestly don't know what to do at this point. I feel bad for lying this long, but I feel like it's been too long to pull out of this. I don't know. Just needed to get this off my chest and maybe some advice. What do you guys think? Should they just keep the accent and hope to never see those people again? Or should they finally give it up and show their friends the real them? I, personally, would be too scared to be shunned after lying for so long, so I would probably keep it up and then move away after graduation. I scammed Temu and now I lost $500,000. Okay, so I thought I was scamming Temu, but now I'm in debt. Not actually, but here's how the story went. I had like $1 in my account and there was something I really wanted that was $1.89. So I thought, oh, we'll just see what happens. So I bought it and looked at my account, and I still had $1 in my account. I was thinking, that's strange. But didn't think anything of it. Fast forward, I get $10, so I do what any other irresponsible kid does. I spent it as soon as I got it. I bought the items, but still had $11. So I'm thinking it's probably not going through. So I get the package but check my account, and there, staring right back at me, was the crisp digits of 11. So I'm thinking this is an absolute miracle. So I go ballistic, buying stuff I could never imagine affording. Electric guitar and other items. These packages are getting delivered but my money stays. Then one day I go to school absolutely bawling with my Temu accessories. My mom calls me in the middle of class. We just lost $500. I am absolutely crapping bricks. I am so scared. I tried canceling my cool orders but nothing's working. I'm freaking out, my friends are laughing at me, my mom's screaming. It didn't take $500 from my account, it took it from my dearest mother's. When I got home that day I was sworn never to see the light of day again. Moral of the story, don't try scamming Temu. Hey guys, I know about the title, I just needed to make it longer. At least this poster has the luxury to say they were just some dumb kid. Would any of you have done something like this thinking you were just getting a bunch of free stuff? That is definitely something that I'm not sure I would have done. But I was a dumb kid once, so who knows? I can't tell my customers that the espresso they're drinking is actually decaf. This week, I'm training as a barista in a coffee shop so I can get extra hours. I actually really like the job, and while it can be hectic at times, it can be kind of fun. Yesterday, I found out that we ran out of regular espresso beans, which was a problem since most of our drinks needed espresso. At first, I was told to tell customers we were out of it and offer other options, but this made people upset and drove business away. So my boss eventually told me just to use decaf espresso and not tell customers about it. According to my boss, we're completely out of regular espresso and probably won't get any more for a few days due to shipping delays. So to avoid conflict, we have to use our decaf instead. I'm an honest person and it bugs me to keep my mouth shut about it. I even told this to my parents, and they were really upset that I would lie to people about this and warned me that eventually, someone would figure out the difference. I feel so guilty about it, but at the same time, there's not much I can do. A coffee shop without caffeine is like a bakery that doesn't sell bread and wouldn't look good for my company. But lying is also something that goes against my morals, and I just feel wrong staying quiet. All I can do is add extra espresso and hope it makes it a bit stronger. But it's all I'm able to do. I wonder if this is something other coffee shops do. I've never worked in one before, so I don't know the common problems a coffee shop would deal with or if they would have to make a choice like this. Wow, I feel incredibly bad for this new employee. I, personally, would simply quit and say why. I'm not what you would call a corporate lackey, and I will speak up or quit, or speak up until I'm fired. Honestly, it doesn't matter, as long as bad companies don't get away with poor business practices. I broke one of my bones on purpose to get out of going to school as a kid. When I, 16 male, was 9, I really hated school. I would do anything in my power to get a day off. Fake sick days, faking a high temperature, fake vomit, and so on. I got away with this for so many years, but people were catching on and getting suspicious. We had a trampoline buried in the ground in our yard, and while I was on it one evening I had a thought. If I broke a bone, then I can't go to school for weeks. I was jumping really high, thinking how to do it, and I rotated my leg so I would land on my ankle and it would hit the metal frame and springs. I didn't think it was possible to feel that level of pain, not just my leg, but all through my body. I landed on the side of my ankle and my whole leg literally cracked. I don't know how I didn't do more damage than I did, to be honest. Spent the whole night in hospital, and to my delight I was put in a full leg cast, thigh to ankle, and sent home the next evening. Funnily enough, it didn't even give me much time from school. I had 1 week of glorious breakfast in bed, video games, and terrible daytime TV, and then I had to use crutches for weeks on end at school with people constantly trying to draw on my cast. I feel bad about this. I've never confessed, and I don't think I can now after so many years. I don't know why I thought it was a good idea to blatantly hurt myself for this kind of thing. I'm almost worried for myself. I was, and still might be, a little bit psychotic. Edit. People who are genuinely concerned for my welfare, I'm okay. I ended up being homeschooled about a year after this. I just had some awful teachers, and the school actually ended up being shut down a while after I left. I am seeking therapy for non-related issues, however. Thank you for your concerns. This actually sounds like this could be some sort of attention-seeking behavior. I'm glad this poster is in therapy, but I think they should probably bring this up and see if their therapist has anything to say about their traumatic past. Have any of you ever done anything to purposely injure yourself? And if so, what happened? I have actually done something to purposely injure myself. When I was 11, I really wanted a broken bone for some reason. Because of therapy, I now know that it is because I had a traumatic childhood and I was desperate for attention and affection. That was all I could think of to get what I didn't know I was craving. I was very sheltered, so I was a pretty dumb kid. Anyway, when I was 11 years old, I sat on the top step of my staircase and purposely fell forward down the stairs. It was a short staircase, so I only ended up breaking 2 fingers in my non-dominant hand, but I had succeeded. Don't worry, I have a regular therapist, and I have brought this up with her. I messed up my own life by dropping out of high school. I wish I could restart and do things correctly. My 17-year-old self didn't understand that high school has an age limit. I'm not even sure if this is the right place for this. I know no one cares. That's part of the reason why I failed. There was very little encouragement at home. But if I'm being honest, I just gave up because the assignments were too difficult for me. I was a loner in school. I'm not sure what I want people to tell me. Just be glad you're not me, I guess. Thanks for reading this sob story. It's been on my mind for some time. Your situation reminds me of my dad. He dropped out of high school and only got his GED when he was in his 40s. It was a big step for him, and it changed his perspective on what he could achieve. It's never too late to pursue education or to take steps toward the life you want. My dad is a testament to that. It's okay that high school wasn't the right path for you at the time. Everyone's journey is unique. There are alternative education options like community college courses, vocational training, or online learning that might suit your learning style better. And if you ever decide to pursue your GED, it can open new doors for you, just like it did for my dad. Keep moving forward, one step at a time. Your story doesn't end here, and there are still many chapters left for you to write. I broke my leg at work trying to throw up in the grass instead of on the sidewalk. So, I work in the ER. I had been feeling pretty nauseous that morning on my way to work, but had no other symptoms, so I just figured it was just from reflux or something. I have a horrible time with it sometimes. When I got there, it was pouring rain. I was walking in and then it hit me. I'm going to puke. I didn't want to throw up on the sidewalk because that would be super embarrassing, so I ran to the grass. I stepped on the grass and felt my leg snap, and that's all I remember because then I passed out. My coworker who was also coming in was like, "What are you doing? Are you okay?" I was like, "I think I threw up on myself." If I even threw up, I might not have gotten that far. I think I hurt my ankle. So more of my coworkers came out to put me in a wheelchair, and I had to explain how this happened to the attending, who is also my coworker. I broke my tibia, fibula, dislocated my ankle, and ruptured a ligament, because I didn't want to be embarrassed by vomiting on the sidewalk. I tell all my friends and family I just slipped in the rain though. Best believe though, next time I'll just puke on the sidewalk. Oh, and I never did throw up. I guess snapping my leg in the process resolved that issue. I know you went or are going through a rough time with such a serious break, but I honestly had a good laugh at this one. I've broken bones 3 times and each time was really dumb, so I understand hiding the real reason to ease the embarrassment. I hope you are healing well and are able to laugh at this one day soon rather than feeling the embarrassment. I might have started a very large rat infestation in my neighborhood. For context, a few months ago, me and my dad went to visit my grandma who lives on the other side of the city. While I was snooping around my grandma's storage room, I saw these rain boots and for whatever reason I decided to ask my grandma if I could have them. Now when I got the boots, nothing seemed off. I thought they looked quite normal and clean looking on the outside, so I didn't bother trying them on. When we got home, that's when I found out how wrong I was. Thank God I didn't put the boots on. My dad did. He felt something squishy and disgusting on his feet, so he dumped the contents of the boots, and then we saw. There were baby rats, or mice. Sorry, English isn't my first language, inside each boot. I'm not talking like 2 or 3 baby rats. There were a lot. Maybe like 40 or 50 in total. They looked like they had just been born. It was so horrifying and nasty. Some freaking rat had turned it into a nest of sorts. My dad immediately thought about killing the rats and getting rid of them, but I couldn't do it. No matter how disgusting they were, I still felt bad for them. Their mother was probably frantically looking for them, but my dad insisted. Of course I did not listen, and I decided to dump the mice on the shallow part of the neighborhood's canal system, hoping they would survive. I told my dad I had dumped them into the canal to drown them, but I lied. Now I forgot about this entire incident, and I have even worn the boots on several occasions. But recently, I noticed a few rats scurrying around the neighborhood. These rats were huge. Not New York City levels, but still pretty huge. They were as big as kittens. I thought nothing of it, but then I heard several neighbors complaining how there were rats inside their homes, and that's when I connected the dots, and realized those rats might have been the same ones I dumped a month ago. And that's pretty much it. I live in a nicer area, so our neighborhood was pretty clean up until those rats started scurrying around the streets, in the garbage and in people's houses. Even our house was no exception. My mom screamed in the early hours of the morning, and that's when I knew they had invaded our house as well. People were getting mad and complaining, and I am horrified. The local government unit has already become involved, and I think this is becoming a very big issue. The rats are everywhere now. I seem to be the only one who has realized, as my dad seems to be oblivious, and I plan to keep it that way. I know it might sound like nothing to you all, but every time I hear a scream in our neighborhood I do feel a little bad. I seem to have made things just a little harder for everyone living here. Edit. I'm sorry I may have given the impression I was a disgusting person for keeping the boots. I grew up in a household where the furniture would be rearranged every Sunday just to make sure every spot would be clean. Back then I just thought it was such a waste to throw them away when they were still usable. I did deep clean them. I used a crap ton of cleaning agents to make sure those boots were not nasty anymore before I even put them on my feet. But yes, I should still have gotten rid of them. This is a really rough situation. Mice and rats are difficult to get rid of, and if the whole neighborhood is infested, then it really is a serious issue. I understand your stress and am honestly surprised your dad hasn't figured it out yet. I don't have much advice. You're young, so I'm not sure what you can do to help. And thankfully there should be enough complaining going on that the neighborhood does something to help soon. Being compassionate to animals is very noble, and if your dad wanted them dead, he should have done it himself, not asked his compassionate kid to kill over 40 rats. It's not your fault, I blame your dad. I threw a drink through a lady's open car window. I, 28 female, was around 19 and leaving my work. This woman was driving recklessly, weaving off of the road to get around people and then stopping in front of them, and proceeded to run me off of the road. When I got back on the road behind her, she kept slowing down and acting like she was moving off of the road so that when I tried to pass her she would try to hit my car. The one lane then split into two, a straight lane and a right-hand turning lane. I decided to go straight. No one was behind me and the person in front of her was taking forever to turn. I'm assuming they didn't realize the light was green. My windows were down and so was her driver's side window. I chucked my fountain drink from my lunch break through her window and went straight. For context, I'm usually a very patient person, to the point where someone could be a straight-up a-hole to me, and I'll think to myself, are they okay? They must be having a bad day. And I'll let it go. But something in me that day just was not having it. I know what I did was wrong, believe me. As I was driving off, I immediately thought, maybe that wasn't the right thing to do. I'm not saying what she did was right either. I mean, it's not like she was weaving around people because of an emergency if she had time to sit there and screw with people. Right. I don't know. It's been something I've been going back and forth on in my mind whenever I happen to think about it. While this is something I would never do to someone, or at least I hope I never would, I find it satisfying in a silly, petty kind of way. What do you guys think? Did this story make you chuckle, or did she go too far? I steal from big chain stores a lot, probably 3 to 4 times a week. It's getting bad. I, 26 female, live alone in a small city in northern Ontario, Canada. Things are expensive, inflation is at large. I work 2 jobs and sometimes can't always afford to buy food for myself. So about 3 years ago, I decided to try my hand at stealing. Turns out, I'm scary good at it. I do not steal from local boutiques or anything like that, just mostly grocery stores. Sometimes Walmart. I've gone in and paid $40 for a grocery bill that should have been well over $100. The main grocery store in my city, there are 2, got self-checkout and their doors don't have the beepers or detectors by the exit. Ever since then it's gotten progressively worse. I've used the same strategy for many years and have never gotten caught, and I've stolen tons in that time frame. From big packs of chicken, to steaks, to other foods, to clothes, to household items, to necessities like toilet paper, Kleenex. I've tried to chill out on doing it so often, but I literally can't help it. There are times when I have $7 to last me 2 weeks. No one can live on that. Sometimes if I don't steal, I don't eat. The reality of struggling to afford essentials like food and necessities is a difficult one, and it's unfortunate that you've found yourself in this position. My family is also struggling to regularly afford food, so I understand your pain. Perhaps there are other options you can look into for help, like food banks or other charity organizations, to assist you in not only feeding yourself but in your shoplifting tendencies. I cut this girl's hair all the time in elementary school. I don't know what it was, but when I was in middle school, this girl in front of me had long blonde hair, and I remember one day just grabbing a pair of scissors, and since nobody was paying attention, I cut a little off. I didn't even feel bad at the time, and nobody said anything, and she didn't even notice. So I did it again and again and again, until one day, I went for the big snip, and mid-chop the teacher noticed, but by that point it was too late. The next time she came to school, her hair was way shorter, like a short bob from her hair being all the way down her back. I got scolded by the teacher, by my parents, and the girl never sat in front of me again. Each person that sat in front of me was pretty wary, and the teacher paid special attention to me. But at the time, I didn't even think I did a bad thing. Now as an adult, I actually realize that was an insane thing to do, and I feel a bit bad. But I don't know what it is, but I feel like I would do it again. I'm not even sure I feel too much remorse, but it was wrong to do. It's not something to find funny, but it's truly insane to look back on. Thinking about how I got scolded by my mom and she asked me why I did it, and I told her, I don't know, no reason really, just wanted to. I can't help but laugh in disbelief. In hindsight, it feels like I was unhinged as a child. And to the girl whose hair I chopped off for no reason, I hope your hair grew back out and you completely forgot about me when I moved away. I have to agree, this sounds pretty insane. Hair is really important to most people, and nearly every culture has a different profound connection to hair. What really got me was when the poster said they feel like they would do it again given the opportunity. It seems that they certainly didn't learn much, if anything, from this encounter. I hope they never get an opportunity to do this again. They sound like a bit of a menace to hair. I wonder if they like their hair? I gave my sister brain damage as a child, resulting in her decreased ability to visualize. I have felt guilty about doing this one thing ever since I was a child. I must have been around 12 years old when my female cousin, who was around 10 or 11 at the time, showed me a trend on Musical.ly, and it involved two people turning someone around. I felt a little hesitant, but I still agreed to do it. So she suggested we did it to my little sister, who was around 6 at the time. And as we were doing it, we must have missed a fundamental step in this stupid trend, and my sister fell vertically on her head by a good couple inches and started crying. Recently I was talking to her about it, joking that I gave her brain damage, and she said she didn't remember the event. But as we talked about it, she said she suddenly remembered and said that immediately after it happened her mental imagery, visualization, decreased significantly, to a point where she now hardly visualizes. She still visualizes, but the mental images are not strong. After she's told me that I've been eating myself alive ever since. I don't know how to live with myself. Now I'm not sure whether people would call this a disproportionate reaction. All things considered, she didn't completely lose her ability to visualize. But the fact that I obeyed my cousin like that so easily and ended up decreasing my sister's quality of life has made me feel like crap, and I don't know what to do. It's evident from your words that you care deeply about her and are struggling with the impact of that childhood incident. It's important to remember that as children, we often don't fully understand the consequences of our actions. Children are still learning about the world and how to navigate it, and unfortunately, accidents do happen. It sounds like what occurred was an unintended consequence of a playful activity that many kids engage in without realizing the potential risks. The guilt you're experiencing is a sign of your empathy and your love for your sister. You were a child then, following a trend without the foresight or understanding an adult would have. What happened was an accident, not a deliberate act of harm. It might be helpful to have an open and honest conversation with your sister about how you feel. Expressing your remorse and discussing the incident might bring some closure to both of you. It's possible she doesn't hold any resentment towards you and understands it was an accident. While you can't change the past, you can learn from it, and use this experience to grow and be even more considerate in your actions going forward. I fooled my entire family into believing that I was graduating college. When I was a teenager, my father passed away. That same year, my sibling moved away to college and my mother began dating somebody new. This was extremely hard for me as a child, and I recall feeling completely alone. My mother began inviting her boyfriend to sleep over at our home, and I told her that I wasn't ready for this, so she decided to start sleeping over at his place. I was left completely alone. I remember my mom would drop off a few frozen meals a week and then go back to her boyfriend's place. I lost a significant amount of weight from not eating properly, and I collapsed one day at school. My aunt picked me up from school and asked me what was going on, and that was when I confessed everything to her. My aunt and uncle had a very stern talk with my mom. My mom yelled at me and told me that I wasn't allowed to tell anybody about what was going on at home. She would blame me and tell me that the reason our extended family doesn't like her anymore is because I told them what was going on. Fast forward to college, my mom told me that as long as I didn't share what was going on at home, and that as long as I was nice to her boyfriend, she would pay for school. During my junior year of college, I became severely depressed. I developed an eating disorder that impacted my ability to be physically present in class, and I began failing all of my courses. I didn't know how to tell my family, so I lied a bunch and played along as if everything was fine. I even convinced one of my friends to pretend to be a school counselor and talk to my mom. Once graduation time came around, my mom began planning a party for me and invited all of our friends and family. I accidentally left my school login info on her computer, and she saw my grades. Everything collapsed under me, and my family began hating me. My mom kicked me out of her house, and I went to go live with my aunt and uncle. I attended a handful of family interventions, I have apologized, and I have tried to rebuild my relationships. I also went to treatment for my eating disorder. It has been 7 years since this happened, but it still haunts me every day. My family doesn't let me forget it, but I am trying my best to move on. The situation you found yourself in as a teenager and young adult was incredibly difficult. It's important to recognize that the actions you took, like pretending to graduate from college, were a response to a set of overwhelming circumstances. You were trying to cope with loss, loneliness, depression, and the pressure of family expectations, all of which can be incredibly hard to manage, especially at a young age. While it's understandable that your family was upset upon learning the truth, it's concerning that they haven't recognized the underlying issues that led to your actions. It's not fair for you to bear the blame alone, especially considering the emotional neglect and pressure you faced from your mother. It's vital for healing and moving forward that your family understands the context of your actions and the emotional distress you were under. It's commendable that you've sought treatment for your eating disorder and have made efforts to rebuild relationships and apologize. These are significant steps in taking responsibility and working towards healing. However, it's also important for your family to offer you understanding, support, and a chance to move past this incident. Holding on to this and constantly reminding you of it isn't conducive to healing and growth for anyone involved. If you haven't already, consider seeking therapy or counseling to help you process these experiences and learn healthy ways to cope. A professional can also guide you in navigating your family dynamics and finding a path forward. Remember, everyone makes mistakes, especially under duress. You deserve compassion and a chance to move forward with your life, free from the constant reminder of past mistakes. Your journey of healing and growth is just as important as addressing what happened in the past. I haven't been taking my meds for months, on purpose, and now I might need surgery. I have a condition called Graves, and it's slowly been destroying my life. I can't do the things I used to. I've been living in constant pain, but I also struggle with a rampant eating disorder. I'm huge, overweight, and struggling with restriction and emission. My doctors don't believe me though. I've been told I need to exercise and diet so I can return to a healthier weight because I have liver dysfunction due to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I have a gym membership. The last time I went to the gym, I collapsed on the treadmill with a heart rate of 210 beats per minute and had to be carried out by my partner. I'm 245 pounds. No matter what I do, I cannot lose weight, and I can't figure out why. I have Graves, gastroparesis, NAFLD, POTS, hypermobility in almost every joint, IBS and EOE. Eating anything makes me miserable. My doctor told me that one of the major symptoms of Graves is rapid weight loss. In the beginning, before they knew I had Graves, I had gone from 270 to 215. I was ecstatic. Then I started taking my meds and started ballooning up again. So I stopped. I was on a weight loss drug and it really helped silence the food talk in my head and I was able to eat and was happy. But then my insurance denied a refill because they don't cover weight loss meds. I don't know what to do. I can't look at my meds. And now even when I take them, I involuntarily throw them up. My endocrinologist told me I might need to have my thyroid removed because my levels are so dangerous they're doing damage to my heart. But if I have my thyroid removed, I'll have hypothyroidism and I'll get even fatter. I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. It took 2 years to get a gastroparesis diagnosis because I was fat. I didn't get a Graves diagnosis until I collapsed at work and the hospital doctor ran tests and caught it. My primary care doctor told me she didn't want to run tests for hyperthyroidism because I was fat, and being skinny is a symptom of it. I have so much wrong with me. I live in constant pain, can hardly eat even when I want to, am constantly vomiting even when I don't want to, and I'm scared that if I don't lose weight I'm going to die from some condition they never thought to check for because I'm fat. I don't know what to do. I'm terrified. I want to extend my deepest empathy to you for the struggles you're facing with your health. As someone who has POTS, EDS, and rheumatic heart disease, I understand firsthand the challenges of navigating healthcare, especially when dealing with complex and overlapping medical conditions. I also know how frustrating and disheartening it can be to feel like you're not being taken seriously by healthcare professionals, particularly when weight becomes a focus rather than the underlying health issues. The journey you've had with Graves' disease, alongside your other conditions like gastroparesis, POTS, and IBS, sounds incredibly tough. It's clear that you've been doing your best to manage a very complex health situation. The frustration and fear you feel are completely valid. Regarding your medication and the possibility of needing surgery, it's understandable that you're scared and feeling uncertain about the best course of action. The prospect of developing hypothyroidism after thyroid removal and concerns about further weight gain add another layer of worry to an already stressful situation. However, it's crucial to consider the potential risks of not following your prescribed treatment plan. Your endocrinologist's concern about the damage to your heart is something to take seriously. While the fear of gaining weight is real and valid, prioritizing your immediate health and the functionality of your thyroid is critical. It might be beneficial to have a frank conversation with your endocrinologist or seek a second opinion if possible. Express your fears about weight gain post-surgery and discuss all possible outcomes and management plans. It's important that your medical team understands all your health concerns, not just the immediate ones. Also, consider seeking support for your eating disorder, as it's a significant factor impacting your health and treatment decisions. A therapist specializing in eating disorders could provide you with strategies to cope and help you work through the psychological aspects of your condition. Remember, you deserve compassionate and comprehensive care. Don't hesitate to advocate for yourself and seek out healthcare providers who will listen to you and take your concerns seriously. You're not alone in this, and there are medical professionals out there who can offer the support and understanding you need. I used to steal a bunch of money from my old job. I used to work in a big sandwich shop chain from 2019 to 2021. At the closing shift, we would bag the money and put it in the safe. There were cameras, but I was told by a few that no one ever really watched them. I started stealing a few $100s almost every shift. I probably stole about $3,000 or more, and I was never caught. I started to get scared because I was taking a lot of money, so I stopped. Then one day the regional manager told me that I had been miscounting or not doing the sales properly, so he trained me for the closing shift again. Then, I had a co-worker tell me how he was also pocketing money by telling the customers that the card terminal was down but he could accept cash. Then he would pocket it and not mark the sale. I started doing the same. No one ever found out, and I ended up being fired for a different reason, too many call-outs. But that was such a bad thing to do. I just didn't care. But now I think how wrong that was of me, and I wish I never did it. The regret you're feeling looking back on the situation is understandable. Were you hurting for the money at the time? I'm honestly surprised that you didn't get caught because that is a very large amount of money, but you were probably suspected of it due to the retraining. Personally, I have never stolen anything from a job before. I would be too afraid of the possibility of going to jail or not being able to find another job. However, when I worked in an office, I always had more pens and notepads than I needed in my desk. I just never took them home. Have any of you ever stolen from a job? If so, what did you take and were you ever caught or suspected of the crime? I stole the donations made to our company and I don't know if I should keep it or not. My mom died a year ago from breast cancer, and my dad basically left me to care for my younger siblings. I live paycheck to paycheck and my credit card bank already hired a collections agency to call me every day. I'm still in a huge debt due to my mom's cancer treatments for 2 years. I'm a few $100s lacking for our rent, but I seriously only have around $20 in my name. I'm desperate and don't know what to do. We don't have any relatives or friends that could help us. Recently, our company hosted a donation drive for Christmas, and I received around $200, enough to get me and my siblings through. I have it with me right now, but I'm still debating if I should use it or not. The company won't be able to track it because these were all given to me anonymously in cash, but I still feel bad. I know it would help my family so much, but I can't stomach thinking that if my mom could see me right now doing what I'm doing, she'd be disgusted of me. Edit. Each employee is responsible for collecting the donations, and I was able to collect the $200. The donation drive was not connected to my current living situation but for Christmas. Update. Thank you everyone for talking me out of it. I haven't been myself these past few days, but I'll do my best to hang on for my little family. I'll turn the donations in first thing tomorrow and try to talk to my landlord. You were all so kind to a stranger. I never knew how much I needed it until now. It's really nice to hear that this poster returned the money. That is very admirable. Hopefully they can find a way to more significantly help their family get by that doesn't involve stealing. If someone else were in this same situation, I am not sure they would have made the same decision, or even if I would have. Would any of you consider pocketing cash donations to benefit your family, especially if your income is as low as this poster's is? I made a KFC worker clean my poo and it's been on my mind for months. I, 21 male, live in a small southern Missourian town an hour south of St. Louis. It's a small town where you go to surrounding small towns to run errands. Me and my girlfriend, 22 female, were heading home from a grocery store 2 towns over. On the way back I felt the unsettling chirp from the devil himself through my butthole. I got off the highway and went to a gas station to get gas and poop. We went in, paid for gas, and I tried to poop but someone was in the bathroom. Went outside and pumped gas and afterwards I went back inside but the bathroom was still locked. At this moment it was do or die. It felt like holding it in was an Olympic sport. There was a KFC right next to this gas station, so I go drive my car there and park. Immediately I run inside, leaving the car running with my girlfriend inside. I run towards the bathroom and the stall was out of order, and in this moment I had to make a decision to A. Poo my pants or B. Poop in the broken toilet. I went back to my car with clean pants and my girlfriend noticed I looked disgruntled. She asked me what was wrong and I said, I just pooped in a toilet that was out of order, and now some KFC employee is gonna have to clean my poo out of a toilet. I almost started crying. This was about 4 to 6 months ago, and it always lingers in the back of my mind. And to the KFC employee that had to clean that 6-minute-long monster turd, I'm sorry. I wasn't laughing until I read monster turd. I used to work in a restaurant and was in charge of the cleaning, including the bathrooms. There were so many times that I regretted working there just because of how bad the bathrooms were. But I understand your internal embarrassment and shock in this situation. At least you got this load off. I broke a bully's head and lied about it, and never got any repercussion when I was 6. I'll keep this short. Basically, the entirety of neighborhood kids pulled up to my house to play in the garden, but we purposefully made sure we didn't invite this one bully who annoyed everybody. Kid comes to the door with a fear of missing out, and starts ringing the doorbell so much so my mom came outside angry to see who was doing that. I explained and told her I'll deal with it. I grabbed a heavy metallic sphere thingy and threw it into the air so it went over the wall surrounding the house. It lands, and the next sound we all heard was a scream. Calm and peace washes over us as the bully isn't bothering us, and nothing comes of it. Next day, a lady was walking in the neighborhood and she asked me if I knew the kid because his head was broken and she wanted to know what had happened. I simply denied knowing anything of it. I never told a soul about it. End of story. I could have gone in detail, but I don't know if y'all's ADHD would follow through with the story. Edit. I did see him some time later, and his head was heavily bandaged. It sounds to me like these kids and the poster were the bullies. I first read this as their hand was broken, not their head. What exactly made this other kid a bully? Excluding a kid and injuring him because you think he's annoying is what most people would define as bullying. If you asked me, someone should know what you did and what kind of a person you really are. You seem to have absolutely no remorse for injuring someone, and that's deplorable. And what kind of a mom lets a 6-year-old kid deal with someone they don't want there? What do you guys think? Do any of you think the bully is the poster? I used to trick a man into sending me PSN cards when I was a teen. When I was 14, my dad got me a PlayStation 4, but I had no games to play. So I used to spend a lot of my time playing a free beta game online called PlayStation Home. It's basically kinda like the game Sims, but online. Everything is virtual, but you pay real money to buy virtual things like clothes, special customizations, house, apartment, etc. You can also interact with people all over the world in public virtual areas. When you type, a little bubble appears above your avatar's head in which anyone can see nearby. Anyway, I was using a girl avatar to troll, and I met this Arabic man who was in his 30s who claimed to be rich. At first he was teaching me Arabic language, then it escalated to this weird dom sub kink that he had. I had no idea what any of that meant when I was a teen, but he wanted me to call him master and make my avatar do certain gestures, and in return he would buy me PSN cards, usually $50 cards. They are like gift cards which you redeem the code and can buy things for PlayStation, so he basically just sent me the code. Sometimes he would tell me how to spend the PSN cards, like what outfits to buy for my avatar, which were usually skimpy outfits. I did everything he asked. I was just excited to download digital games from the PSN cards that he would give me. I did, however, spend most of his money on PlayStation Home content. This went on for a long time. Eventually I stopped spending so much time in that virtual world as I got older and wanted real-life experiences. I eventually stopped signing online in PlayStation, but I found out years after that PlayStation Home closed way back in 2015. And it's crazy thinking about it because thousands of users were active and spent a lot of time and money on that game which they can't play anymore. I regret what I did to get PSN cards, even though it was all just in that virtual game. This honestly makes me feel gross. I wonder if the man knew this was some 14-year-old kid, and if not, then he was getting off on those avatar interactions. This poster doesn't seem to realize just how gross this was and what they were providing to that man by allowing that dynamic. This is one of the main reasons online games where you can type whatever you want is so dangerous to kids. This gave me the shivers. I went through my mom's phone and I regret it. My dad is in prison, but I'm not gonna get into that today. They have divorced on paper. They still love each other, they told me, and they only divorced so my mom could get financial help from the government, since we're struggling money-wise. But today I was on a call with my dad, and after we hung up I went through her Snap out of curiosity, and saw horrible messages I feel disgusted by, like for example, "I am so boring that I only let you blank in my mouth. You're so hot. Meet up again at 8 p.m. and more." And that was only my mom's text. I blocked the guy on her phone, and she confronted me about it. I then told her about the messages I saw and whatnot. Now I'm ignoring her while she blames only me without saying anything. And I'm left constantly imagining it in my head, being angry at her and sad. I regret my actions and I wish I never looked. What a day. This sounds like an incredibly complicated situation. So this poster's parents are still together but divorced? If the mom is now seeing someone else but they told their kid that they were only divorcing for financial reasons, then this poster has every right to be upset about his mom's perceived infidelity. However, sometimes snooping gets you exactly what you don't want: misery. I think it would be best to sit down with your mom and ask her why she is seeing someone else if her and your dad are still together. That can help you better understand the situation. But it sounds like such a complicated situation all around, and that probably involves a lot of complicated emotions, so it'll be a good idea to ask your mom about family therapy. I've been lying to my therapist about a situation that's been bothering me. I don't know how to tell my therapist I had sex as a 16-year-old. I lost my virginity this summer and regret it truly, and have prayed so much since then, as I've grown up being taught that sex is bad and am in a community where having sex is a huge scandal and means you are a whore. This has been on my mind and taken a toll on me, as the guy I did it with was a situationship who I did not know was taken at the time. I really don't know why I did it. I think my loneliness took control, but I really do regret it and feel shame. I want to tell my therapist about this because it's making me super anxious and scared. I really do wish my first time was more special than it was and with someone special. And now it's so hard to live with the fact I feel dirty and stupid for losing it so soon, especially with the loser guy I did it with. I'm scared my therapist will think differently of me, especially because I told her I never did anything with this guy and because I really regret it. And I don't want her to judge me because I feel like this will definitely make me look bad. I really can't talk about this with anyone I know, so I sort of have to suffer in silence about it. I'm scared anyone I know will even find this. I'm so upset I lost my innocence to someone I don't even speak to anymore, and I feel horrible, especially with the fact he was taken and now there's drama with the girl. That's also causing me so much anxiety that it causes me to throw up. My therapist is a nice and sweet lady. I don't think she would judge me, but I've already made points to her about how people always make rumors about me, which is true, and I don't want her to start agreeing with those people and for me to make myself look bad to her. Also, not to mention, he told his friends, and I just get so paranoid everyone around me knows, and obviously I'll deny it to anyone who asks, but this pressure is literally too much. Edit. This is my first post, and I literally would have never expected to go on Reddit of all places to talk about this, or anything in general, but thank you so much for the kind people helping me understand better. I appreciate it so much, it's genuinely helping a lot. I also am aware of cultural purity, and I usually am against all of that as I don't take religion in a cult-like way, but I still consider myself Catholic because it is also a part of my culture. Update. I told my therapist about it, and she was honestly so sweet about it, and so understanding, and she helped me out so much. She was not judgmental at all, and told me she was 16 once too. I'm so grateful for her, and all these comments. This is such a good post to end on, knowing that this poster was going through so much anxiety and stress about this situation that they were literally getting sick, but that they are now feeling seen, understood, and validated, is so heartwarming. We were all 16 once, and I am sure many of us have plenty of confessions we can share from our teenage years. Purity culture is such a strange concept because men don't seem to have the same standards that women do. The woman needs to be a virgin, the man does too, but it's not as big of a deal because people claim it can be proven that a woman is still a virgin. It's such an old-fashioned and misogynistic concept. A woman asked me to buy her groceries. I accepted and then I ran away from her. I was at a train station and had to pick up my sister at the airport, already slightly late. I had 20 minutes before catching the train to go to her. The next one would have been 40 minutes later. While waiting, I was approached by a woman, about 25 to 30 years old, with her little daughter. She asked me to buy some groceries for her so that she and her daughter could eat. I tried to give her money instead, but she insisted I accompanied her instead. So I agreed, but I explicitly told her that it couldn't take more than 15 minutes because of the train. She accepted. I regretted it almost instantly. She took a cart and started basically ransacking the supermarket, taking in, apart from lots of the normal groceries, pans, pots, glasses, several 4-packs of Red Bulls, lot of junk food and so on. I roughly counted the expenses, and after a good 10 minutes it was amounting already almost to €200. Furthermore, at the 13 minutes count she was still taking her time with no end in sight. Stressed out at the thought of missing my train, having a public confrontation, and being impolite to someone in difficulty, I just ran away. I don't know whether I should, but months later I still think and feel bad about it. It's commendable that you wanted to help someone in need. It shows your kind and empathetic nature. It sounds like the situation may have been heading towards a scam, or at the very least, was taking advantage of your generosity. Offering the money directly was a reasonable approach. It allowed you to extend help without being put in a situation where you were uncomfortable or potentially being taken advantage of. When she declined the money and insisted on your physical presence, it changed into a strange territory. Feeling bad about leaving the way you did is a natural response, especially when you set out with the intention to help. If you're approached for help again, you can offer what you're comfortable with, like a specific amount of money or purchasing a few essential items. And if the person insists on more than you're comfortable with, it's okay to respectfully decline. I lied about my favorite food for a couple of years. In the beginning of 6th grade in my history class, the teacher was doing icebreakers and asked us what our favorite food was. I wanted to seem fancy and crap, so I said ravioli since it looked and sounded fancy. I'm not even sure if ravioli is considered fancy food, but that started the ball of this unnecessary lie. Every time someone asked me what my favorite food or dish was, I'd constantly say it's ravioli, and I stopped doing that after I realized how cringy and unnecessary that was to lie about that. The worst part is, I never had ravioli before and I still haven't. The first time I ever heard of ravioli was from a SpongeBob meme where Plankton told SpongeBob, "Ravioli, ravioli, give me the formioli." Edit. For everyone saying that I should try ravioli, I'll for sure try it by next week and give an update about it. And my current favorite food is either Tibbs or pho. I highly recommend Tibbs if you never tried it. Edit 2. I just had beef ravioli, and it was delicious. It was beef ravioli with creamy Italian. I loved the ravioli, but I'm neutral about the creamy Italian though. I wouldn't say it's my all-time favorite, but it was definitely good. What a silly thing to lie about. I'm glad this poster has had an opportunity to try ravioli. Personally, my favorite food is tortellini. Not because it's fancy or anything like that though. I forgot about my 1-month-old sister and left her in a supermarket. So I have a younger sister. There is a 15-year age gap between us. I have to confess that when she was 1 month old I was babysitting her, and I took her to the shops in her pram. I was getting my shopping and I completely forgot my sister existed, and I somehow went home without her. Bear in mind I live about 20 minutes away, and I was home for about 15 minutes before I seen one of her baby grows and remembered I had left her. I rang the store and told them, and it turned out she was still left in the bread aisle. No one else had noticed she was left alone. Then I had to run the 20 minutes back to the shop, so she was basically left all alone for an hour. It's something I always think about and I feel awful. Anything could have happened. It was a mistake, so no harm done. And you clearly deeply regret this situation. Luckily nothing ever happened to her, and at least it wasn't in a car. I remember when I was a kid I used to try and hide in the clothing racks to hope that my parents were too distracted and would forget us. I didn't realize they could hear us laughing in there though. Does anyone else have any silly stories to help this poster feel better about this mistake? My mom took $50 from me, so I lied and told her I didn't know where her $200 went. Me and my mother have an up and down relationship. Sometimes we'll be best friends, the next she'll wish I was never born. A burden to her. It was my payday. As soon as I got home, she demanded $50 from me. I had just given her 152 days prior. I knew what it was for. She wanted to gamble, or she was giving it to my stepdad so he could gamble. No matter how many times I told her no, she would get louder and louder and threaten me more, so I just gave in. She wasn't gonna pay me back. She never does. But what could I do? A few days later, me and her were talking in her room. When she got up to leave, I saw it, $200 dropping from her wallet. When I saw it, I didn't know what got a hold of me. This felt like my way of getting revenge. Being able to pay myself back kinda. I quickly pocketed the money and went on my way. A few hours later, my mom called in a panic asking if I'd seen $200 around the house. I told her no straight to her face and hung up. To this day she still doesn't know. I hated stealing and lying to my mother's face, but I also still feel it was deserved after years of her taking from me. I've been living with this guilt for about a month now, and it eats me alive every day and keeps me awake at night. I'm sorry, Mom. Edit. Man, every single one of y'all's comments make me smile and tear up. I wish I can thank you all personally for all the advice I've been given and the feedback. Even though I still feel guilty, I feel a lot better knowing I'm somewhat reasonable for my doings. For those with similar stories to share, I also feel deeply for you. You've all helped me a lot. Thank you so much. I love to see when a poster is able to find comfort in the comments. Knowing they are not alone and having their experience validated is invaluable. Waiter forgot part of my order then abandoned me, so I just walked out. I decided to try a cool ramen place in downtown Spokane for lunch, ordered a bunch of food with the intent of trying a few things out, and then taking the leftovers to my hotel room for dinner. Waiter was super cold, and I felt a little judged when I ordered. Yes, it's enough for 2 meals, I get it. Food comes out, I'm missing 2 appetizers, and he just never comes back. There's a 2-top next to me, getting checked on frequently, and even they notice that I've been abandoned because every time their waitress comes back, they glance over at me, all alone. Also, the ramen wasn't even good, and I didn't want to finish it. I probably sat there for at least 30 minutes after receiving my food, with no service, before I just got up and left. Always felt a little guilty, and I still wonder what he thought when he finally realized I was gone. Oh well? If I received such terrible service, I would start with complaining to the manager, even if it meant I had to get up and find someone to talk to. I absolutely would have not tipped. I wouldn't just walk out like that, but at the same time, I don't blame this poster one bit. What would you guys have done? Have any of you ever walked out on a check before? Was there a good reason? It was me that moved your garden gnome every night. When I, 42 male, was in my 20s, I worked in a nightclub and used to walk home with a couple of coworkers pretty much every night at roughly 3 a.m. On the way home there was this one garden that was always perfect. It had a little pond with a gnome. One of those that has a fishing pole, you know the type, right? Well, one night we decided it would be fun to move said gnome to a neighbor's garden. No damage, we were not heathens. The next night, said gnome was back in its place as if nothing had happened, so of course we moved it again, to a different neighbor's garden. And we continued to do this every time we walked home, normally at least 4 or 5 times a week, for the next 6 to 8 months or so. I hope we didn't annoy you too much, and you took it in the spirit it was meant. It always made us smile to see him back in his original place. Edit. Thank you guys and gals, the responses have made me smile so much. I'm really glad that there is still room for this sort of prank in the world. I like to think that the owner had kids or grandkids that always wanted to hear about the travels of the magical gnome. What a heartwarming prank and confession. This sounds like such a fun and silly thing to do and be a part of. I bet the garden owner was annoyed the first few times thinking that their neighbors were attempting to take it, but soon realized the prank. Knowing it was back in its original spot every day to go on another adventure leads me to believe that they were in on it and loved the traveling gnome prank too. I caused my friend's parents to have to change their home phone number. I was in 7th grade in the late 90s. We had a middle school newspaper called The Press. Well, someone thought it would be a good idea to have kind of like a classified section called Happy Ads where you could spend 50 cents to leave your friends encouraging messages. I took out an ad that read, "Pokemon cards for sale, call this number." But I used the home phone number for a kid in our friend group. He ended up getting so many calls. His parents were livid and complained to the school. I guess once people figured out it was fake, they started calling even more and at all hours of the night. I never told a single person that I did it, and felt really terrible that a small prank got so out of hand. One teacher suspected that it was me, but I always denied having anything to do with it. Kids will do the silliest things not knowing how out of hand it can get. Sharing information to the public like that is considered harassment, so luckily they were just a kid at the time. I bet they would have gotten in a lot of trouble if they were ever actually caught, and they still probably would have had to change their phone number. Have any of you ever pranked someone and it got out of hand like this? Thank you for joining us for today's journey through the whispers of the web. Share your thoughts and suggestions for our next adventure. If you're not yet a part of our whispering community, click the subscribe button and click the bell for notifications to never miss out on another story. Join us next time as we uncover another enthralling tale from the web. Until our next whisper.